Begin with how do you find phone numbers, and we're going to show you how you can find phone numbers for companies on Google Maps. We're also going to show you how to use your ATS, or remind you how to use your ATS and your email account to find email patterns. We'll talk about the email addresses and contact details in your current social connections, and we're going to recommend a tool that you can use to leverage that really easily. We'll talk about how to find email addresses on corporate websites, so 2 ways to try and figure that out, and also how to find just in general email patterns using some Boolean search on Google. We'll talk about how you can test different variants of email addresses you might be guessing using a tool called Rapportive, which we've covered many times before. And then we'll give you a link to an auto email variant generation tool. So a tool that generates different versions of an email domain, and show you how you can verify that using an upload tool into LinkedIn. So I hope you enjoy these tips, hope they're practical, hope you find the candidate contact information you're looking for. So our first tip is how to find phone numbers on Google Maps. So we're going to use an example here today of Pfizer. Just as any random company, we're going to work through all these examples using candidates from Pfizer. So we want to find their contact details. So we're going to jump into maps.google.com. So maps.google.com basically has addresses of company locations. So where's the contact details, you may wonder. Well, it also shows not only the company name, but it also shows their address, and it shows their phone number. So if you type into Google the company name you're looking for, and also add either the city or the county and the country you're looking for, because don't forget that company could have many locations, you will most likely and almost always see the mainline phone number that is registered for that physical address. So not the company's automated customer support number that may be in a different country, but the physical network line that exists there, that is the main registered number. Because Google Maps uses this data to build out their mapping information. They use the phone line data and the address, but they also include the phone number when you look at it. So if we jump into Google Maps right now, I'll show you my example. I want to look up Pfizer in Ireland. So Pfizer have a facility in Grange Castle in Ireland. So I'll see it pops up, it prompts me to pick from my list there. So I click that address from Google Maps, and it shows me that location in Ireland on a map. And you see Pfizer Grange Castle, the full address, and sure enough, there's the phone number. So you see the phone number listed here, the country code and the full number, and then the web address of that. So the reason that is there is because all this information was taken from the same place, and Google displays it all. And it works really nicely to find locations of companies, but also the actual phone number that exists for that company. So if, for example, in here we're looking to find one of these individuals from Pfizer in Ireland, we could literally just call that mainline number and ask to speak to them. Any of these individuals that are jumping up here from LinkedIn that are based in Ireland, or we could look in any different location. So finding corporate phone numbers isn't just about going to the website, because I find if you go to the corporate website, you might get a general global number or a national number that is in a call center. I want the physical number to get straight through to the person who works in that office. And Google Maps is our first tip on how to get that information quite quickly. Our second tip is to use your own ATS or your email account to see if you can find email patterns. So nearly all corporates have consistent email patterns. So they will be, for example, firstname.surname at corporate.something, or they'll be first initial surname. Some patterns are really obvious, some are less obvious. But most companies, when they have new starters, they use some sort of pattern, as it's an easier way to distribute email addresses in the corporate. If you know the email pattern for one person in the company, 99% chance you can figure out the email pattern for anybody else once you know their first name and surname. Of course, there are some exceptions to this when they include, for example, a middle initial, or if they have a pattern that includes numbers that seem random. But trust me, when you look at most of these patterns, you'll see some sort of pattern that you can recognize quite easily and you can apply to your emails. So this is often overlooked by recruiters, but you should search your ATS for other employees who work in the same company or have worked in the same company, and see if you have email information on them. Really quick search of the company name will hopefully bring up some of those individuals. This depends on the size of your ATS database, of course, and how long it's been up and running. But I always find this fairly effective, especially for larger companies within the sector you most recruit within. Another great way is literally to go into your email account, Outlook, Gmail, Hotmail, whatever it is, and type in the web domain. So in this example, we'd use Pfizer.com. and we'd find any emails we've ever received from somebody in Pfizer.com or that have had somebody CC'd from Pfizer.com. Maybe a joke, an email, a friend, whatever it might be. Again, it's just the pattern we're trying to identify, and this can work really well for finding those email patterns in data that you already have sitting in front of you. The next way we're going to recommend you try and find email patterns is to search your social connections. So you probably have lots of LinkedIn connections, you might have Google connections, you have people on Twitter, people on Facebook. Now you could manually go into each of those tools and try and find your contacts who work in that company. Or we'd recommend this fantastic tool which we learned about recently called Connected HQ. So if you go to connectedhq.com, you can register an account completely free. What you do is you authenticate your social networks such as Google, and that's your Google Mail contacts, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And it pulls all of that data together and aggregates all your social connections into one personal CRM tool. And then it allows you to search by company, location, and title. This is a brilliant way to get all your contact details together and then figure out, do you know somebody across any of those social networks who works for this company, and do you have contact details for them? So I'm going to jump in and show you what this looks like. So I have already set up a Connected HQ account. I've authenticated my accounts and all my contact details are listed and aggregated, and you can see them here. On the top you'll see the search. I can search by name, by company, by title, by location, and by email. So for example, if I search by company and I search, for example, for Dell, I press search and it will show me all of my contacts across my social networks who have the employer name Dell. So you'll see that I have people in LinkedIn and Facebook, just LinkedIn down here, LinkedIn and Twitter, a bunch of different people. And I can jump into any of these individuals and I can check out to see, do I have contact details for that person? So for example, I can jump into this person here, and if I look down on the side, I can see the email I have from one of those places, and I can see the pattern for that company, and then go figure it out from somebody else. So there's tons of uses for Connected HQ, but for finding people who work in companies that you're trying to reach out to, where you already have connections, it's a brilliant way of bringing all your social connections together in one place. The next place we're going to have a look at is corporate websites. So trying to find emails on corporate websites. So rather than going to the website and looking at every single page to see is there an email pattern, which can be difficult because most corporates try and strip out personal email addresses from their website to avoid spammers. What we're going to suggest you do is to try and look for investor relations or media relations contacts. Typically the investor relations person or the media relations person, the marketing person, or the press release person is going to have their contact details listed on some sort of press release or investor relations announcement. Obviously, the larger the company, the more likely it is you'll find this data, less likely to find it in smaller companies. And what we're going to do is we're going to Google the following. We'll Google, open your brackets, open your double quotations, look for media contact, close quotations, or open quotations, media contacts, close quotations, or open quotations, press release, close quotations, and close brackets. And then just add your company name at the end. The company name you're trying to target, obviously. So media contact or media contacts or press release and the company name. So if we do this in our example for Pfizer, and we jump into Google and say media contact or media contacts or press release in the word Pfizer, we find press releases and we find media reports. And you can basically jump in, for example, the first result here, press releases, which is a list of all Pfizer's press releases. And on the left-hand side, you'll see that they have a contact Pfizer media relations. Now, I jump into that and I find the actual individuals in media relations who are responsible for these press releases, and sure enough, I find their contact details, including their email addresses. This gives me email patterns I can work with to try and then predict what the email patterns of the candidates I'm looking to reach out to probably are. So finding patterns on corporate websites is much easier when you look for words like media contact or press release that are most likely going to be associated with information that is typically in large companies available on the web. So next up, we're going to try and find email patterns using Boolean search. So this can be a really quick and effective way to try and find emails for individuals, regardless of what the company might be. So what you do is you go to Google and you type in the following. Using open quotations, so double quotations, you put in the word email, space, an asterisk, another space, another asterisk, and another space, and then the domain that you're looking to try and find email patterns for. And don't forget to close your quotations. So really, really important that you use double quotations in this. You have to use them, and that you use two of those asterisks in the middle, separated by spaces. So spaces before the asterisks and spaces after the asterisks. Don't type domain.com, type in the domain of the company you're looking to find email patterns for. So for example, in this case, we'll type in Pfizer.com. So let's have a look at how this works in practice. So when we go onto Google and we type in open quotations, email, space, asterisk, space, asterisk, space, Pfizer.com, we basically, and close our quotations, we find on our list, we find emails tend to pop up. So we'll ignore the generic email addresses like this. We're looking for individuals, so people's names. So we start seeing people's names here. Now for a global company like Pfizer, you're going to get people all over the world. So what I recommend is you add the city name or country name for the location you want to find people in, because sometimes it changes country by country. And when we do this and we scroll down, you find, for example, this email address and this email address. Now to me, one email address is not a pattern, two is. So scroll through a few of those results until you're happy that there's a consistent pattern. And as we can see here, the pattern is first name dot surname. So we can basically try and verify this for anyone we're looking for. Now to be sure, a good way to try and verify once you've got the pattern is to go to mailtester.com. This is a free website that allows you to put in what you think is the email address of somebody, and it will tell you if it works. Well, it will tell you that if it works 2/3 of the time. So let's go back in here and find someone who is working in Pfizer. Let's say for Barry Downey here. And let's go into Mail Tester. And we think it's first name dot surname. So we put in Barry.Downey at Pfizer.com and we check address. So when we check address, this pings the mail server, but it doesn't tell Pfizer we're looking to find it. It doesn't tell Pfizer who I am. It's this website, Mail Tester. And don't worry, Barry's not going to get a notification that someone's trying to figure out his email address. So what you'll see down the bottom here is we get green, email address is valid. So it's the bottom line we're looking for the color in. And you'll either see red, green, or amber. So if you get a green, just make one small change to the email address with an email address that shouldn't work, then recheck it just to make sure you're not getting false positive reads from Mail Tester, because some web domains do give you a yes for everything. So when you get a no for something that you know to be incorrect and you get a yes for something that should be correct, you know that that will go through to Barry quite easily. If you see amber in your address, so for example, if you try and verify a social talent address, you'll see amber in the bottom line, or orange. That just means that it's not verifiable. Doesn't mean it's correct, doesn't mean it's incorrect. It just means you kind of have to ignore it. It's not verifiable through this method. But this is a great way of trying to figure out email patterns and find them very, very quickly. So next up, we're going to test variants of different email addresses using a tool called Rapportive. So perhaps we can't think of what the email pattern is or can't find it, and it's not verifiable perhaps by Mail Tester. Well, we can use Rapportive. That's rapportive.com. So this is a plugin that works for Gmail, so Gmail only, and doesn't work with Internet Explorer. So as long as you're using a different browser to Internet Explorer and you do have a Gmail account, this can be a really, really handy tool for you. So the process is you go into rapportive.com and you click Add Rapportive to Gmail. This will bring you to the next page that allows you to download it from the Chrome extensions gallery, if you're using Chrome, for example. When you click on this link, it brings up the Chrome extensions page, and in the top right corner, you'll see a blue button that says Add to Chrome. When you click that blue button, you'll be prompted to install or cancel. You'll install it, and the blue button will change to green like it is on my screen at the moment. That's it, Rapportive is installed. When you next log into your Gmail screen, you'll see the Rapportive button up the top here to the left of your username. All you have to do is click on that once and then connect your social networks. So you'll authenticate LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Google, any of those that you have access to. My recommendation is to at the very least authenticate your Google and your LinkedIn. And now if you basically reach out to somebody, you're looking, for example, for Scott. So Scott here, we think we might know the pattern, Scott Wewe. We're going to basically go into our Gmail account and we're going to basically type in an email to what we think will be his work address. So let's say we're just purely guessing at what the patterns are here. If this individual has registered that business address against any social network, on the right hand side of the screen, we're going to get it to pop up and verify that the person actually does exist and that's the right email address. Now, if you don't get a ping, you don't get a match, it doesn't mean it's incorrect. It just means that perhaps that person didn't register that address against any social network, which is completely understandable. So let's try it for Barry Downey here. Let's see if Barry has registered his email address against any social networks. So we know that this is correct in advance, but let's say we didn't, and we type in barrydowney@pfizer.com. What this will do is, again, go off and ping Facebook, Google, Gmail, Twitter, any of the social networks that it has access to, and we'll try and verify it. And then you'll get a positive result. You'll see the person's photograph, their job title from that network. If you see a connection with any network, it means this has worked and that the image is matching the right person and then that email works. So a positive match means you can go ahead and send an email. If you don't get a positive match, it just means that perhaps that person hasn't verified or you have an incorrect email address. So this can prove very advantageous in trying to reach out to people and verify them as well, because you'll also find all their social connections and you can connect with them there as well. So the last thing we're going to show you is how to basically generate lots of different options. So an auto email variant generation tool, and then use that with LinkedIn. So what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, you're going to have to download a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet's available from bit.ly/email variants. So it's in plural. We'll tweet that out as well. So bit.ly/email variants. So you can look at that and basically you can download a spreadsheet that looks something like this. So this spreadsheet basically allows you to fill in a couple of fields here. So for example, I can put in first name, surname, and the domain I think I'll find that person's web address under. And it will produce a list of all the different variants that you could possibly have of that email address. First name, last name, first initial, surname, all these different variants. So really, really simple tool. We'll then basically copy the email addresses. We'll open up a spreadsheet. So once we copy that, we open up a new spreadsheet. And what we do is we paste. Now, when you're pasting, it's really important to go to paste special, not just paste. And you'll paste the actual text of that. So not the actual formula, because the formula you're copying actually isn't the text. It just generates like that in Excel. You'll paste it in here, and when you go to paste special and paste as text, you'll get the email addresses there. You're going to go to File, Save As, and you're going to save that as a comma-separated value file, CSV, not an Excel workbook. It has to be CSV, and call it something you'll remember. So I've called it Pfizer Test, Pauline, for example. So once you've saved that CSV file, what we're then going to do is we're going to go into LinkedIn, in a certain place in LinkedIn. In fact, linkedin.com/upload contacts. And make sure you put a capital C on contacts. So this web address was shared with us by Martin Lee in the UK. And there are different ways in LinkedIn to get to this, but this is the one page that still works. You go to linkedin.com/upload contacts, contacts with a capital C. And what you do is you'll come to this page. So when you get to this page here, you can basically choose the file that you've saved. So you find that where you've saved it. You then upload that file by clicking Upload Contacts File. It will work for about 30 to 60 seconds, and then it will show you in a list of all the email addresses you've imported, all of those different variants. There might be 60 or 70 variants. But the one that is correct should have a match against somebody on LinkedIn. So for example, you'll see this blue in button to the right hand side of the address that is accurate. If you see, for example, here, without a blue and without the person's job title, it means that it just doesn't know if that's correct or not, or it's not registered against any LinkedIn member. So it searches all LinkedIn member registered email addresses. And if there's a match, you'll see it there. Doesn't mean you have to connect with the person, you can just cancel the process there, but you will be able to figure out which of those patterns is the correct pattern for that person. So nice little way of doing it. I'd probably exhaust all the other means first before you'd use that tool, but it can be really effective. So next week on our weekly Wednesday webinar, when the next webinar is going to be March 27th, it's going to kick off